Good morning, Year 10. We are going to go through Act 2, Scene 5 now, where Shylock and Lancelot start and Jessica then enters. We see a different side of Shylock. Here it's in his domestic setting, in his house, so we get more of an idea of what he is like personally. Okay. Shylock it initially is essentially berating Lancelot for leaving him. He's warning him that Bassanio is going to be a crueler master than he was. Well, thou shalt see, thy eye shall be thy judge, the difference of old Shylock and Bassanio. So the difference between Shylock and Bassanio. And then Shylock interrupts himself by calling Jessica repeatedly whilst he's speaking to Lancelot. Thou shalt not gourmandize. Gourmandize means eat to excess, as thou hast done with me, and sleep and snore and rend apparel out. So this contradicts everything that Lancelot was saying when he was talking about why he wanted to leave Shylock earlier on in the play. Lancelot claimed that he essentially had been starved, which is clearly not true if you see what Shylock is saying here. And it's apparent that Lancelot is quite a lazy servant. So Lancelot then says, "Why, Jessica?" after Shylock is calling for her. We can see that this is a bit of a childish response from Lancelot. He says, "Your worship was once tell me that I could do nothing without bidding." So he calls Shylock your worship sarcastically initially, and then will normally tell me that I can do nothing without bidding. So he's essentially taking the mickey out of Shylock there. Jessica then enters, stopping their conversation. Shylock tells her, "I'm bid forth to supper, Jessica." He's going to dinner with Bassanio. And then he talks about why he's going and says, "But yet I'll go in love to feed upon the prodigal Christian." So this is a return back to that motif of cannibalism and violence, the pound of flesh that we saw earlier. This is obviously linked to the deeply harmful slander against Jews that was prevalent in the 16th century. The fact that, blood libel was widely believed by Christians, that Jewish people ate Christian children and drank blood, etc., etc. There are two ways you can obviously construe that. It's either that slightly nicer way, which is that he's planning on feeding upon Bassanio's hospitality, so eating as much free food as he can, or that he's actually going to eat Christians. And I think that it's supposed to be seen in both of those ways by the audience. Charlotte then said, "Jessica, my girl, look to my house. I'm right loath to go. There are some ill a-brewing towards my rest, for I did dream of money bags tonight." Again, this has two different meanings. So, first of all, it's unlucky to dream of money, according to Shakespeare. It shows that Shylock's feeling some sort of premonition that something bad is going to happen. Now, we as the audience obviously know that Jessica and Lorenzo are planning on eloping, so we know what the bad thing is that Shylock is anticipating. It's also a way to fit the stereotype of Shylock and of Jewish people, that they're greedy for money. Lancelot then says, "I beseech you, sir, go. My young master doth expect your reproach." That's another malapropism from Lancelot. He means approach. But Shylock, in a rare moment of humour, said, "So do I his." He's also expecting to be reproached by Bassanio when he goes. And then Lancelot has a little bit of a slip. He says, "And they have conspired together. I will not say you shall see a mask. But if you do, then it was not for nothing that my nose fell a-bleeding on Black Monday last at 6 o'clock in the morning. Falling out that year on Ash Wednesday was 4 year in the afternoon." So, this can be construed in two different ways, and it's really up to the interpretation of the person who's analysing it. It can be interpreted as a private joke with Jessica that, the mask is happening because obviously Jessica knows of these plans, but most people construe it as a slip of the tongue from Lancelot, that in his anxiety and his excitement about, the plan that's going to take place, he let slip and they have conspired together. Okay, so they have made this plan to see a mask, and then kind of tries to cover it up with the babble about his prophecy because of his nose bleeding on Black Monday last at 6 o'clock in the morning, that nonsense. So he's trying to cover up what he's just said and confuse Shylock, so Shylock doesn't read too much into it. And then Shylock is horrified. What, are there masks? Hear you me, Jessica, lock up my doors, and when you hear the drum and the vile squealing of the wry neck fife, clamber not you up to the casements then, nor thrust your head into the public streets to gaze on the Christian fools with varnished faces. But stop my house's ears, I mean my casements. Let not the sound of shallow foppery enter my sober house. By Jacob's staff I swear I have no mind of feasting forth tonight, but I will go. Go you before me, sirrah, say I will come. Okay, so this bit's really interesting. The house is an extension of Shylock and all the possessions within it. My doors, my casements, he says. He doesn't want his house or his daughter contaminated, by the mask. And this is ironic because obviously he's obsessed with guarding the house and entrusts the guarding of the house to Jessica. There's a real emphasis on the protection of his wealth, his possessions here. And we obviously again know as the audience that Shylock's not going to lose his possessions. He's going to lose his daughter. And here, throughout this this scene, you can see a kind of grudging affection for Jessica. He calls her Jessica, my girl. Okay, he is really protective of her. Lock up my doors. Clamber you not up to the casements, nor thrust your head into the public streets. Okay, he is protective of his daughter. So there is an affection for her there. And it calls into question whether Shylock really deserves the treatment he's about to receive from Jessica, essentially. Now, obviously, again, it could be argued that because of the contextual time period, because of it being the 16th century, obviously Jessica is kind of part and parcel of Shylock's possession, being that she is his daughter. So she is included in his anxiety about his possessions. But that's neither here nor there. Okay. Lancelot then says, I will go before sir. Mistress, look out the window for all this. There will come a Christian boy. It will be worth a Jewess's eyes. Lorenzo is coming. That's what's happening. Okay, so Lancelot is delivering the message that Lorenzo will be down on the street during the masque. Okie dokie, moving on. Again, another kind of sign of affection from Shylock. So he calls Lancelot the Patch. This is a kind of... It's a way of saying servant, because servants would wear patched clothes because obviously they wouldn't have enough money to buy a lot of clothes. But it's kind of a weird affection from Shylock. He then, calls him kind, but then obviously he says that he's not a particularly good servant because he eats a lot, he sleeps all the day. More than a wildcat, in fact. So he's not particularly sad to lose him to Bassanio. And indeed, he thinks that he will help Bassanio waste his borrowed money. He leaves by saying, fast bind, fast find, a proverb never stale in thrifty mind. Fast bind, fast find means keep things secure and they were readily found. This is dramatic irony. Obviously, Jessica isn't secure, so regardless of locking up his want to lock up the house and his possessions, he is going to lose something very dear to him, regardless of whether it's locked up or not. This is really interesting in different plays or in different kind of directors' interpretations. Jessica, you can have a little bit of fun with the portrayal of Jessica here, whether she's kind of anxious about leaving and guilty about leaving, or in one particular, I'm not sure which one it was, but in one particular performance, Jessica was standing behind Shylock, mouthing the words to the proverb behind him, and then smiles when he turns around, so kind of making fun of him behind his back and suggesting that he's said it a lot of times. Jessica then says, farewell, and if my fortune not be crossed, I have a father, you a daughter lost. Nice rhyming couplet to end the scene. And what Jessica's saying is essentially betrayal can sever family ties. Family is relationship and financially driven, not blood driven. It's kind of as easy as that betrayal to suddenly not have a father anymore.